about to begin our next 200 million year turn, and we're going to be leaving the Hadean era behind and moving into the Archaean era. We have an organism here in the green players tab below. Photocarboxylation also has 2 mutations on it that are very tempting for these other players over here. The blue and the yellow parasitic players are going to want to latch on and steal those cubes from us. I'm going to see if there's anything I can do to prevent that from happening. We'll dive right in and draw the very first card of our new era. And it's a special card, the Tropical Water World. It's going to make oceanic and coastal landforms active. The ocean and the coast are active. Alright. Place this card over continental landforms until next to Aftershock. We haven't seen an Aftershock yet, but I'll explain it when it gets here. So this card is going to be placed on top of the continent landform, which means that it's going to be locked down and cannot be used. And even if it does come into play on a future event card, until this is knocked off of it, the continental landform is locked down and cannot be an active row. And you can see here that this causes Armageddon to happen in just 3 warming periods instead of 4 while this is out there. And our first player is blue. We're still in a cooling period with 2 cooling animations on the card, but if we warm up, it only takes 3 instead of 4 due to the tropical water world. Blue will be our first player. Blue is going to try and assign itself as a parasite to this organism and steal 1 or more mutation cubes. You can see the blue player has the virus that can steal red and yellow cubes, and on the other side we have the viroid that can steal red and green mutation cubes. Now it's a random determination as to which side of the card will be active this turn. See if I can place this down without knocking things over. Okay. We'll roll 1 die. If it's a 1, 2, or a 3, it'll stay on the virus side. 4, 5, and 6, we'll flip it over. We got a 6. So the viroid side will be the side this turn that the blue player will have. And as I said, it can go after red and green cubes. And unfortunately for us, we do have a green chloroplast symbiont mutation. So the viroid will attach itself to our organism and steal our green mutation cube, and now that becomes a diseased cube. The viroid has stolen the chloroplast symbiont's mutation cube, and now it has it as a disease cube. The chloroplast is still in play, and the viroid will gain the oxygen shield because it has a green cube as an entropy chromosome, and its blue biont is in play, which means it also has 1 shield against atrophy. Now I no longer have the benefit of this O2 shield on the chloroplast because the viroid has stolen the cube off of it. Now there is a chance that we can get our disease cube back onto our mutation, but we need what's called the red queen. Here, I'll show you on this one stack here. You can see that little red crown. That red queen ability allows us to be able to steal our disease cubes back onto the mutations that they came from. We don't have any red queen ability right now, so for now we're not going to be able to take it back. So the Viroid has captured and stolen that chromosome and is using it for its own benefit at this time. The blue player has completed its assignment phase. Now we will move on to red. It can still only assign one biont to a refugium. This red biont that's inside the green player's organism does not count as one as far as being assigned, so it's still okay for the red player to assign one biont. And we only have two choices right now. We have the hydrothermal vent or the green rust fumarole. We're still in a cooling phase. On a hydrothermal vent, one's organized mana. Over here on the green rust fumarole, we got ones and twos. But this is much more unstable, and only sixes are negative over here, even though we have to roll ones to organize mana. Even though it's harder here, I'm going to go to the hydrothermal vent. Next we have green, and I also, that way I can roll 4 dice, I'm going to go to the hydrothermal vent. Again, we have a contested refugium, and the first color that shows up of our players is red, so red is going to be in charge here. Next up we have our yellow player, who has a malaria parasite that can steal blue and green, and a proteobacteria that can steal red and green. The Viroid has a green, the tRNA has a blue, so this parasite could steal both of those cubes and supplant the Viroid parasite, because it would have more cubes than the Viroid would have, and it would knock it off. But first we have to see, is malaria going to be active, or is the proteobacteria going to be active? We need to roll another die. As before, the malaria side will stay up if I get a 1, 2, or a 3, and we'll flip it on a 4, 5, or 6. And it's a 1. That means malaria is going to assign itself and supplant by stealing the green cube from Viroid and the blue cube from the tRNA mutation, and set itself up pretty nice. And blue gets sent back. That'll finish all of the players' assignment phase, taking us into the autocatalytic roll for the hydrothermal vent. It has a green and a red biont on it, so we're going to have to roll 4 dice. The hydrothermal vent is stingy, only allowing us to organize mana on ones. Doesn't matter if we're in a warming or a cooling phase. We're in a cooling phase now, but we need ones. And we want to avoid sixes, because the sixes will cause mana death. So hopefully, why don't we just go forward and roll all 4 ones? No, that's not a great result. We got a 1 that's going to allow us to organize, and then we got a 6 that's going to disorganize it. Red is the progenote here and is making the decisions, and we are going to organize 1 green mana, and then at 6 we'll disorganize it, giving us a green enzyme or a green catalyst, which will go to our green player since red is approach note and got to make the decisions. Green is awarded the green catalyst, and also when I started the turn with the event and the ocean and the coastal landforms came into play, I did not royal the decks. I did do that between shots, so they're correct again. That's a tough rule to remember. You always want to just jump in and start doing things, but whenever you determine your active landforms, you got to remember to royal those decks of mutations. That was the only autocatalytic roll that we had to do this turn. Now we're going to move into our Darwin roll, and this time we have 2 organisms. We have photocarboxylation that's going to do its Darwin roll, followed by the parasite is going to do its Darwin roll right after it. The green player's organism is going to have to roll 7 dice for the 2 bionts and 3 cubes. And malaria is going to have to roll 4 dice for its 1 biont and 2 cubes. We have the 7 dice that were needed for our green organism. And again, we want to avoid 5s and 6s because thanks to malaria stealing our blue heredity chromosome, we have no protection. So we want to avoid 5s and 6s. And that's a rough roll. This is going to do some damage. We didn't get any 1s. We didn't get any triples. We're not going to gain any enzymes. We do have 2 yellow specificity chromosomes that will allow us to re-roll 2 dice. And that turned out a lot better. For each of those 1s, we're going to get a green catalyst that's going to go to the green player. But we do have 1 atrophy that got through. Because of this 5, we're going to have to atrophy our organism. Now normally you would start with mutation cubes, but our mutation cubes are under here. They're gone because of our parasite. And then after you go beyond mutation cubes, then you would go to other cubes and then bionts. Well, we do have other cubes in the organism. And I don't want to knock out his entropy, so I'll choose to lose 1 of my specificity chromosomes. But at least I gained a couple of enzymes. Or I'm sorry, a couple of catalysts. I keep interchanging the 2 terms, enzymes and catalysts. They're not enzymes until they're turned into enzymes. Next we have 4 dice that we need to roll for malaria. And it's looking to avoid 5s and 6s. And it did just fine. It only got 1 5, but thanks to it stealing my heredity chromosome, that 1 5 is not going to cause the malaria parasite to atrophy at all. That's the only Darwin rolls we had to make, moving us into the purchase phase, starting with our blue player. The viroid is not attached to anything, so it's not going to make a purchase. Then we move over to our red player. And there are some green and red mutations available for purchase in the active rows. And there's also a red one in the home row of photocarboxylation. And protein X, or it's not protein X, but our red player, has 1 red catalyst that it could use to purchase one of these organisms. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to spend 1 red catalyst and purchase from the home row and get this ribosome RNA, because then next round I'll have the Red Queen ability, which may allow me to steal some of my cubes back from malaria. Got a lot of mutations going on in photocarboxylation. Next we have green to make a purchase. And I have a couple things I need to decide. What do I want to do? Do I want to buy another mutation? Because I can spend 1 green to get the one that's in the ocean row, or I can spend 2 green to take a endospore or the nitrogenase from the home row up there in the cosmic landform. Or do I want to spend a green to promote my chloroplast, even though I have my main cube stolen right now? But maybe I can do that with the hopes that I'll be able to steal it back from malaria with my Red Queen ability. Had to turn the camera off for a minute to go look up some rules because I wasn't sure if I could promote a mutation that doesn't have its cube on it because the cube is over here on the malaria parasite. I checked on BoardGameGeek.com and the answer came directly from Phil Eklund, and he said yes, that you can promote a mutation even if the cube is over here on the parasite, because the cube's not lost. It's still in the overall organism. It's just diseased, but still there. Now, if that cube were to go away while I had it promoted, then it's going to wipe out the whole mutation because it needs that base cube to exist in order to be promoted. So for green's purchase, I'm going to do that. Spend 1 green enzyme, and I need to grab a yellow cube for when I promote this. And I know that because if you look up here on the tops of the cards, you can tell what color the promoted side is going to give you, so you can plan ahead. So we'll promote this one to cytoplasmic streaming, and it's going to give me another oxygen shield and a DNA, a heredity chromosome to help protect from atrophy. And we have sex, sporic meiosis, and I'll explain what that means in just a moment. Get my cards back in place, get my cube on. Alright. What having that sex ability does is next round or any round after that, as long as I have at least one of those abilities on a mutation, before I make my purchase, I can royal one of the decks in an active row or my home row before making that purchase. Green has completed its purchase, and now yellow gets to make a purchase. And it's going to use... Oh, I see I made an error. I spent a red from the red player to purchase this ribosome RNA, which I cannot do. I would have had to have spent from the green player's tableau, so I'll fix that now. I'm going to leave it there. I already made the purchase, which will cost me 2 green to equal that red. Luckily I had enough catalysts in place that I don't have to worry. It doesn't mess anything up. I don't have to backtrack and make a bunch of corrections. In a way that kind of helped me out, because now it's yellow's turn to make a purchase and I'm out of catalysts. So yellow cannot purchase any mutations. So this thing's not going to get any stronger. And I was worried that maybe it would purchase something with a red queen ability, which would block me from taking my cubes back. Because if it had one and I had one, you have to have more red queens than what you're attacking in order for it to be successful. So since it's not able to purchase anything, it's not going to gain that ability, which means I might be able to get some of my cubes back if I have the enzymes to do it. Or the catalysts. The purchases are complete for all the players. That'll end this 200 million year segment, our first segment of the Archaean era. Our organism here on green is getting a lot bigger. We're going to have to watch out for any UV radiation that happens during an event that might start knocking some of these mutations off. And we have to try and get our cubes back from this parasite by attacking it. So we're going to want to go somewhere to get some catalysts to be able to do so. We're ready to begin our next turn. We'll draw our event card. We're in the Archaean era, and we've drawn the Huronian snowball, making cosmic and continental landforms active. The continental landform is still locked up in the tropical water world, so it will not be active. These previously active landforms are now inactive, and the only row that we're really going to have any action on is the cosmic landform. Normally you would have 2 refugium come out starting from the bottom because they're erupting from the earth, not the comet smashing down in. So we'd start at the bottom down here at the continental and work our way up. But the continental, it is locked up in the tropical water world. The coastal and the ocean are inactive, so we would draw cards from the cosmic landform, but there are no cards left to draw. Which brings us to an oxygen spike. Attack at 1. So every organism would have to protect itself from an oxygen spike. Each green entropy chromosome in an organism protects it from an oxygen spike. Malaria has 1 already. Photocarboxylation has 2 in there, plus it has additional shields protecting it from an oxygen attack, and this is there's only 1 symbol, so it's only a level 1 attack. But here is a problem. We're still in a cooling period, and we got 3 of them now in a row. 1 more cooling period, and that's it. It's just going to be the big frozen wasteland snowball Earth. And the first player this turn is the yellow player. First up will be yellow in the assignment phase. It's already attached to an organism, so it's not going to go anywhere else. Our thyroid does not have, it does have the ability to steal a red and a yellow cube on its back, on the back of its card, and we do have a red and a yellow cube out there, but malaria is already in place with 2 disease cubes, and in order for it to supplant or knock that parasite out and take over, it would need to have, or need the ability to steal more cubes than it already has here. So since this one has 2, and 2 is the most that it can take, it's not going to be able to knock the malaria out of there. But maybe it can wait for malaria. If malaria makes some purchases, maybe the thyroid can be a hyperparasite and actually attach itself to the malaria, leeching off of any of the mutations that it may purchase. And I didn't do it on camera, but I didn't forget, I did already royal the active cosmic landform deck, because you remember the nitrogenase was out during the last turn, and then I roiled it and brought out the mitochondria. So that was done. Back to what we were doing, the assignment phase. Since blue cannot assign itself, we'll come over to red, who is right now stuck at the hydrothermal vent because it's inactive, so it can't leave. Then we come over here to green. Now green is also stuck at the hydrothermal vent, but it has 2 entropy chromosomes, so it could assign up to 3 bionts, or 3 bionts to the refugium. But the problem is, the only one available, the active landform, is the cosmic, which is a depot biosphere. And if we remember, in order to place our biont on here, we have to pay a catalyst. And currently, our green player does not have any catalysts, so it's unable to assign that remaining biont. The assignment phase is complete, which will take us into our autocatalytic roll. Starting at the top, working our way across and down. The only refugium that has bionts on it currently is the hydrothermal vent. 1 green, 1 red. Again, we're going to need 1s in order to organize mana, and we want to avoid 6s. Also, again, this is contested. We're tied. The first color that shows up in the mana structure of our players is red, so red is going to be the progenote. That means that any enzymes we may gain from mana death are going to go to the green player. We want 1s, and we want to avoid 6s. Well, got a whole lot of nothing. Nothing is going to organize, and nothing is going to disorganize. No 1s, no 6s. But we did roll doubles. So if we wanted to, we could flip that card over and give red its first organism. And why not? It's not going to be a very strong one, but what the heck. Let's go ahead and do that. Give red an organism. I changed my mind. I was going to flip it, but I really want to organize a little bit of mana before I do turn it over. I don't want it to be something that's going to get wiped out right away because it has no heredity chromosomes to protect it. It won't have we'll have 1 red, which would be a heat shield, but it wouldn't have any specificity chromosomes to allow it to reroll dice. It would just be too easy for it to get wiped out. I'm hoping that the ocean landform becomes active soon, then I can assign another green biont to the hydrothermal vent and maybe put some enzymes on it so the 6s can do nothing, and that'll give us more chance and more dice to roll to organize mana. But that's done. Now we're going to go on to our Darwin rolls for our 2 organisms, photocarboxylation and malaria. We'll do the Darwin roll first for yellow's the first player, so it will go first on the Darwin roll. And it's going to need 4 dice, 2 for the biont, 1 for each cube. Move this forward just a little bit. There we go. So malaria is going to roll, and end up with 1-5, which is going to be taken care of by its 1 heredity chromosome. No damage there. Now our green player's organism has 2 bionts and 4 cubes, so it's going to have to roll a total of 8 dice. Oof, lots of high numbers there. That's not good. We did get 1, which is going to give us 1 green enzyme for our green player, but we have 4 atrophies. We have 2 yellow cubes that will allow us to re-roll 2 of them. And I ended up with, well, that was a 4. I turned it over when I moved it. I ended up with triples. That'll be another catalyst for the green player. And I don't think I mentioned it before, but on the card it actually tells you which color of catalyst that you're going to receive for that 1 or for those triples. But we do have 2 atrophies that we're going to need to deal with. And unfortunately for us, in the rules, it states that first you start with cubes that are on mutations. Since we have 2 of them that will need to be taken care of, first we would deal with the one that's the promoted mutation. It's going to be the first one to lose its cube, which will flip it back over to its unpromoted side. The green cube, which is over here with malaria, so the mutation is still in play on the organism. And our ribosome RNA is going to lose its cube, and our organism is from the cosmic landform, so this will go to the cosmic landform deck. That ribosome RNA will go to the bottom of the cosmic landform deck because that is the home row of the organism. And you can also see over here my 2 green enzymes that I received during the Darwin rolls. And finally, that'll move us into our purchase phase, which would normally start with yellow, but that is a parasite. Blue's not purchasing anything, and then we come over here to red. And I have to remember this time that since this organism is in green's tableau, purchases made for it will come from green's catalysts. I made that correction in time last time. It didn't upset anything or cause any problems, but just like remembering to royal the decks, got to remember to purchase from the tableau of the player that the organism resides in. I'm going to have the red player hold on to their enzymes, to their catalysts. That way, if we do get this hydrothermal vent or some other refugium to flip and give them a organism they can control, I want them to have some currency to be able to spend. Salmonella. Well, salmonella. It's not salmonella, it's photocarboxylation. But the green player is going to spend 2 green to equal 1 yellow and purchase the mitochondria here in the home row and the only active landform at the moment. And that's going to give us the red queen ability. It's going to give us another protection from an oxygen spike, and it's going to give us fusion. Now this, when it becomes effective in the next round, allows us to make 2 purchases instead of 1 for the organism. And the red queen will allow us to attack malaria and hopefully get back some of our cubes. Malaria would go, because it's a parasite, it would go right after its host, but I used up both and all of my catalysts. It has nothing left to purchase with. That's the end of our purchases. We've reached the billion-year mark. We're ready to go a little bit beyond it, but remember, we have 3 cooling events in a row already. So this version of the Earth may end very soon. If our next card from the event deck is a cooling period, Earth is going to end in a big, desolate snowball. Is it going to happen? Let's find out. Here we go. Moment of truth. We have 3 cooling periods in a row. We're going to draw the next card in the Archaean era. And what are we going to get? We got a warming period. And we have an aftershock, the late heavy bombardment. A whole lot of meteors, comets, a whole bunch of stuff just slamming into everything in the solar system. Whenever we get this aftershock, it means we draw another event card and apply its effects immediately also. So both these cards are going to take effect. So we had our warming period followed by a cooling period again. But luckily we had that warming period in there that broke it up. So we're not going to end in snowball Earth. Gonna have a lot going on here. Let's get our landforms set first. Cosmic and coastal will be active. Cosmic's already active. Coastal will be active. And thanks to that aftershock, the tropical water world is blasted out of there and our land can start coming out. It's not active this turn though. And we will roil the 2 decks of our active landforms. And we have one from below and one from above. Starting at the bottom and working our way up. The first one we come to is the active coastal landform, which will bring out the pumice raft. Let's take a look at the pumice raft. And we're in a cooling period again. It got really hot during the bombardment and cooled right back down, so we're going to need 1s. 4 mana come out, and then 5s and 6s are our problem here for the pumice raft. Then we have the one from above, and the first one we come to again is our active coastal landform, and this time we come to the alkaline hydrothermal seep. It's 1s and 2s whether it's hot or cold. 4s, 5s, and 6s are our problem. There's our mana structure. So it is also in play. And we need mana for these cards. Mana cubes are in place. Now we're going to have UV radiation. This one's not a problem here because it allows us to have 4 total mutations. But this one is a problem. We can only have 1 total mutation. normally a player would get to choose which mutations to discard, but we have to go down to 1. But since we don't have the special ability on any of our mutations called immunology, which would protect us, we have to get rid of healthy mutation cubes before diseased. So unfortunately our mitochondria will get wiped out. And now I'm going to choose to get rid of the tRNA. And this cube will get lost too on malaria. And I wanted to do that because that will help hopefully get rid of it, because it doesn't have its heredity chromosome anymore to protect it from errors and atrophies that would occur. Both of these cards will return to the deck of the home row here in the cosmic land form. Finally, we have our extremophile event, and it's a double this time. So twice that is going to hit each organism. And we have to look at the heat shield, which is our metabolism chromosomes. The green player's organism has 1. So it's going to be able to deflect 1 of those extremophile events. But it's not going to be able to deflect both, and it's going to suffer an atrophy and lose one of its cubes. And I think I'm going to take the specificity chromosome off, leaving the double entropy, because then I can place all of my bionts out there to try and build another organism. Malaria has no heat shields, and it will lose not only its disease cube, getting rid of the chloroplast symbiont, but it will also lose its biont, causing malaria to be removed from my organism. The chloroplast will go back to the home row in the cosmic land form. And then we look on our card, the Valbara breakup, and green is going to be our first player this round. As you can see, the game is brutal. It is hard for life to take hold, which makes sense. Thematically, it makes a lot of sense. We had a nice string of mutations out here. This organism was getting close to being able to turn into a macroorganism, and then everything went wrong with that aftershock, with the late heavy bombardment and the Valbara breakup all hitting at the same time. Earth heats up, Earth cools back down, things are slamming into it, UV radiation, extremophile events, just wiped it out. I'm glad that it's still alive, but it really is a minimal organism now. Starting with green for our assignment, and since it has the 2 entropy chromosomes still, it can use its additional biont. We can go to the depot biosphere. No, we can't, because we need an enzyme or a catalyst to go there. We're going to go to the alkaline hydrothermal seep, because at least there we have 2 dice that'll cause mana to become organized during a cooling period. Yellow and blue don't get a turn. We have no mutations out for them to attach to. Red is still trapped at the hydrothermal vent, and that's where we will start our autocatalytic roll. The hydrothermal vent has 2 bionts on it. We want 1s and we want to avoid 6s. Well, that definitely didn't do us any good. We got a 6. That 6 is going to cause one of these bionts to be removed from the hydrothermal vent. Red is the decision maker, is the progenote, and red is actually going to remove themselves from the hydrothermal vent, so they're not trapped there if it's inactive again, and they will get a red catalyst in compensation. Green's bion is all by itself on the alkaline hydrothermal seep. It will roll 2 dice, hopefully getting 1s and 2s and avoiding 4s, 5s, and 6s. 1s and 2s. Oh, there we go. Perfect. We get to organize 2 mana. I want to get that red and that blue up there. And hopefully, if this remains active, we can get the red, or maybe even remove the green from the hydrothermal vent and bring it over here also. And we can flip this one into an organism if we can roll doubles. That is all the autocatalytic rolls that we had to do for this turn. That'll take us into our Darwin roll, and we only have the 1 organism still out here. It's got 2 bionts and a cube. It's going to have to roll 5 dice. We don't have anything to protect it, and we don't have the ability to reroll. This may be the end of that bacteria. Yeah, well, nope, that won't take it out. We didn't get any 1s, but we did get 2 atrophies, 5 and 6. Because of those atrophies, this entropy chromosome is going to go away, and now this is green's organism, so red is going to be taken out and given a red catalyst in compensation, and leaving our poor little space bacteria here with just 1 lonely biont on it. The Darwin roll complete. Our space bacteria with photocarboxylation is barely hanging on. We'll go into the purchase, starting with green as the first player. Has no catalysts. Yellow and blue are unable to make purchases. Red is unable to make a purchase because all of its bionts are back in its tableau, so it has no bionts in any organism to make a purchase for. So this was a quick 200 million years and a very brutal period in history. Almost completely wiped out all life on the planet. One little bit is clinging. Hopefully we'll be able to build from there, and maybe now we have more landforms out, if we get something that's more active, we can get these bionts either reassigned or assigned, and hopefully get more life forms out there and work towards a macroorganism that we can make landfall with maybe a few billion years from now.